I was sitting on my late wife's porch swing, the one she painted robin egg blue 42 summers ago, when the first siren sliced the hush of our Lake Cove lane. My coffee hadn't cooled yet, and already I heard boots on gravel 3 sets, marching like they owned the world. "Mr. Halverson," a woman's voice, crisp as new paper, floated up the stone path. "Open the door for the safety inspection, or we'll open it for you." I glanced at the brass plaque still nailed beside the screen, Esther, Harold, Est, 1978, and felt the same jolt I feel every dawn. She's gone, but the cabin isn't. I whispered to her anyway. "Watch this, sweetheart." Just as the latch cracked like a gunshot. They were inside before I could lever myself out of the swing. Back when Esther and I bought this half-acre on Little Crooked Lake, the only rules were the ones the loons called across the water at night. We raised 2 boys who learned to bait a hook before they could spell HOA. When the Crooked Cove Association formed in the late 90s, we signed because we were neighborly, not because we were afraid. 30 years later, that piece of paper had swollen into a 4-inch binder that new President Darlene Caro carried like a preacher carries a Bible. Darlene's people trimmed trees she didn't own, fined folks for bird feeders, harboring rodents, and measured grass with a ruler pulled so tight it hummed. Last spring, she set her sights on my cabin, our cabin, because the cedar shingles had weathered to a color she called depressing. She sent notice after notice, each envelope heavier than the last, until the final one arrived in July. Failure to replace siding within 14 days will result in forcible entry and remediation at owner's expense. I tucked the letter into Esther's old cookbook between the brownie page and the one for Blueberry Grunt. I told myself I'd deal with it tomorrow. Tomorrow, as usual, took its sweet time. The day it all came to a head, I was expecting company. My grandson Patrick, fresh from his second tour with the Air Force. He'd called the night before, voice soft, saying he needed the lake and his granddad more than he needed sleep. I baked Esther's molasses cookies, set the chessboard like we'd never stopped mid-game 12 years ago, and waited, instead of Patrick. Darlene arrived, flanked by a uniformed security guard and a handyman with a red metal crowbar. I stepped onto the porch, palms open. "Morning, Darlene. You're early for the potluck." She didn't smile. "Harold, you received final notice. The board voted. Non-compliance endangers property values." I kept my voice low. Esther always said I sound most dangerous when I'm quiet. "I'm waiting on a contractor. Give me till Friday." "Today's Tuesday." She snapped open her binder. "Section 14. B allows forced entry when a structure presents imminent hazard." I looked past her at the cabin. Warped shingles, yes. Sagging porch? Maybe a little. Imminent hazard? Only if you're allergic to memories. I tried again. "My grandson's coming. Let me host him in peace, and I'll sign whatever you want next week." Darlene's kin lifted. "Peace doesn't override bylaws." She nodded to the handyman. The first swing of the crowbar splintered the jam I'd carved Esther's initials into the year Nixon resigned. The second swing tore the screen door Esther's great-uncle built from maple saplings. I felt each blow in the bones the army doctors swore would ache every time the weather turned. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stepped aside, because sometimes letting someone make a mistake is the first step toward justice. Inside, they stomped like they were raiding a meth lab instead of a living museum. Darlene's heels clicked across the pine floorboards our boys used as a racetrack for matchbox cars. She flicked on her phone flashlight, even though the sun streamed through every window. "Clear violation," she muttered. "Original single-pane windows, energy inefficiency, antique wood stove fire code, and this," she pointed at the quilt frame hanging from the rafters, the one Esther pieced from our son's baby clothes. "Combustible material stored too close to ceiling." I swallowed the words I wanted to say, words about love and time, and the arrogance of measuring a life in our values. Instead, I asked, "Mind if I make a phone call?" Darlene smirked. "Call your lawyer. You'll need one." I dialed Patrick. He arrived in 20 minutes flat, tires spitting gravel. I'd seen that same controlled fury the day he graduated basic, when a sergeant mocked his stutter. Patrick stepped onto the porch, duffel slung over one shoulder, and surveyed the busted door like it was a downed aircraft. He nodded at Darlene. "Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Patrick Halverson. I believe you're trespassing. Darlene straightened. We have authority granted by the CC rupees. Patrick reached into his pocket and pulled out a tri-folded packet. I read those on the flight home. Section 14. B requires written notice delivered by certified mail 30 days prior to entry. My grandfather received regular mail 14 days ago. That's procedural default. His voice stayed conversational, but every consonant landed like a drill sergeant's boot. Darlene's cheeks reddened. We also have a duty to mitigate hazard. Patrick tilted his head. Then you won't mind if I conduct my own safety inspection, starting with the permit status of that crowbar. The handyman suddenly found his boots fascinating. I almost smiled, but Patrick wasn't done. He turned to me. Granddad, you still got that old camcorder Mom bought you for the boys' games? In the roll top, I said. Mind if I borrow it? I'd like to document the condition of the premises before remediation. He looked at Darlene. For insurance purposes. She opened her mouth, closed it, then snapped her binder shut. We'll be back with proper paperwork. Patrick didn't move. You'll also bring a check for the door, ma'am. Federal law protects veterans' dwellings from unlawful entry. My granddad served 2 tours in Nam. I'd hate to involve Jag. Darlene retreated faster than a squirrel spotting my beagle. That night, Patrick and I patched the door with plywood and a 2x4 brace. We ate molasses cookies on the porch, lake water lapping the dock like a heartbeat. I asked the first question I ask you now, listener. What would you do if someone tried to price tag your memories? Patrick scrolled on his tablet. Eyes narrowed. Granddad, their own website lists the board meeting minutes. They've been skirting state open meeting laws for years. No posted agendas, no public comment periods. And guess what? Darlene's husband owns the siding company she keeps recommending. I felt a slow warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the cookies. Son, I didn't raise you to start wars. No, sir. You raised me to finish them legally. Over the next month, Patrick and I became a quiet storm. He filed Freedom of Information requests. I baked banana bread for the county clerk who remembered Esther's funnel cakes at the 4 bake sale. We printed flyers, gentle ones, inviting neighbors to a Crooked Cove history night at the VFW Hall, free coffee and pie. No accusations, just photographs. The 1950s fish fries. The 1976 bicentennial raft race. Kids diving off docks that now sported violation stickers. Darlene showed up, of course, arms crossed in the back row. Patrick dimmed the lights and queued up the video he'd shot the day they broke in, complete with audio of Darlene admitting the mailed notice wasn't certified. Gasps rippled through the room like wind across wheat. Old Walt Kowalski, who flew B-17s over Germany, stood up on creaky knees. In my day, we fought fascists with planes, not property deeds. The vote at the next board